Speaking of technical issues, technical worries, technical problems, I wish I could say that they are few and far between, but that's not the case. And as you mentioned in the beginning of your report, reducing cost has risen and become a top priority for a lot of companies, a lot of the print industry all around the world, as they're struggling to get a handle on what it means to be part of a much more digital workflow than they were just a year ago. Um, so what we see, and a lot of the problems that come from cybersecurity and cybercrime, is just a lack of understanding. And this is kind of at all levels. Even to look at the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of, a cyber attack is an attempt to gain illegal access to a computer or computer system for the purpose of causing damage or harm. This is not a complete definition of what a cyber attack is, even though it's, Merriam-Webster is a very respected dictionary, a very good source of knowledge in a lot of cases, but this falls short. There are many kinds of cyber attacks, and while a lot of companies out there, they worry about, well, we've got to be careful about the malicious third party. We have to be careful about these hackers who exist in dark space. And true, they are a major threat, and they're getting more sophisticated all the time. There are a lot of problems here, but that's only a little more than half of the iceberg. The other half comes from inside the company. Some of these attacks are malicious. Some of them are completely, unintentional. Someone enters the wrong thing, someone does the wrong thing. Guess what? All of that data has now been breached. It's online, it's easily accessed. There was no, concentrated attack. There was no one trying to do anything, but it still happened. So cyber attacks, they're nothing new. They've existed since pretty much the internet, since the 1980s. But as we've gone more digital, as this new workflow has put more and more stress on digital communications, on online communications, their presence has only grown. And this is just kind of natural. It's the way it is. So as we go through this, I just want to talk through a couple of the biggest and most common types. Everyone's gotten a phishing email. Everyone's gotten some scams, someone trying to ask for, personal information, usually claiming there's an emergency. They always put a sense of urgency to try and get you to respond really quick. Don't think about it, just respond. That's actually a really classic way to tell that you're being scammed, is they don't want you to do any research, any third-party checking. But that's the basic stuff. Then you get to more advanced attacks like worms, ransomware, destructionware, dedicated denial of service, which is essentially someone just brings down your network. So if I'm a print company and I'm trying to communicate with all my remote employees, I can't if someone is just overloading my servers, overloading the entire network and bringing me down. And that results in huge loss of profits because you literally can't do business that day. So that's just a typical overview. It'd take way too long to go through all of them, sadly. And they're just evolving and getting more dangerous. Now, I want to talk through today because, as you know, the whole point of this is to reduce costs. But I want to talk about the misconceptions around cybercrime, because cybercrime, it's like a leak. You get a leak and it gets bigger and bigger, and eventually, that leak becomes a flood, and before you know it, you're underwater. That's what cybercrime is if you don't get on top of it in terms of what it can do to your business and what it can do to your bottom line. Now, many print companies out there, even some in the US we've talked to, others from the UK, from Asia, they feel almost like because they exist in a world of paper, that the digital is still separate, which is not the case. Any device that you have that is connected to the internet, whether it's a printer, an MFP, a scanner, all of these are vulnerable to cyber attacks. Now, there are companies out there that thankfully don't store any confidential data on these devices because they realize that it's harder to encrypt them, harder to protect them. So they just kind of make them as transfer stations. They're not data repositories. No files are stored there. But so other companies don't think of it. So they just say that, well, look, we password protect our computers, we password protect our phones, and that's terrific. But if you don't password protect everything, you only need that one device to get into the whole network. It doesn't matter. To keep going into to the next myth, there's a lot of companies out there, especially PSPs, print service providers right now. It's like, well, I'm too small. If they want the big data, they'll go for healthcare companies, they'll go for banks, they'll go for social networks, they'll go for a massive repository of confidential information. And while that's true that they do target these businesses, they also understand that a business like Microsoft has a lot of money that they spend to, prevent cyber attacks, whereas maybe, this small print shop doesn't, because they just are hoping to fly under the radar. So because of this, and because it's true not just for print, but any small company, they don't have the same amount of resources, they get attacked about just as often. Almost half of all cyber attacks fall on these small to medium-sized businesses. And what is really sad is that they're usually fatal. If a business is successfully attacked within 6 months, you're out. It's done, especially if the attack is a big one. Now, as we already kind of talked about this, the people who are, say a print company is like, all right, I got to be aware of this. I got to be watching for the malicious third parties. Yes and no. It all starts with education. And the biggest form and the easiest form of education you can do to protect yourself and to prevent this sort of massive, cost sink from happening is education, which starts within the company. Educate your employees. Teach, restrict data permissions whenever possible. Not every employee who works for you needs access to the whole network to begin with. But just also teach them to beware of things like phishing, beware of things like spam, beware of malware. If they will target people, because people are the #1 cause of cybercrime. I was actually at a RICO event. I was attending a virtual RICO event, and yeah, they still said that the #1 cause of cybercrime and cybersecurity and data cyber attacks and data breaches is people. It's not bad software. It's not a bug in the system. It is a bug in the operator. So yeah, just try to educate your own employees as much as possible. That way they don't accidentally do something that causes you to go out of business within half a year. The last big myth is a cyber attack that can be kept a secret. I mean, you have to inform the government, per GDPR regulations. There has to be some reporting that goes on, but you don't have to tell the police. You don't have to tell the public, your clients. It's not a good idea. It may seem like you avoid the fallout, but you really just delay the inevitable. Usually word gets out, especially if it is a massive attack. Going to the police, by the way, the police don't reveal. They don't get your phone call and then go right to the news and be like, guess what we're doing. They also don't show up and put caution tape and do not cross lines all over the office. They conduct their investigations very discreetly. They're aware that they're not going to catch someone hiding in your server room that's stealing all your secrets. What they are going to do is just try their best. And sadly, most often, especially if it's a sophisticated, attack, a specialty attack, the criminal's not caught immediately. But for companies looking to claim insurance for damages, for fallout, you have to tell that insurance company that you did everything you could. And if you did not go to the police, they're a lot less likely to cover you because you did not do everything that you could to prevent this from happening. So why are we talking about cybersecurity so much? We live in an increasingly digital world, as I said at the beginning. Our recent study, well, for those who don't know, Keypoint Intelligence, one of the things we do is we do market intelligence surveys around the print industry, and we've been doing a lot in 2020 because, Lesley, as you pointed out, there are two 2020s. If you did a survey in January and if you did a survey in April, you can get wildly different answers. And one of the big things we noticed, across US respondents, UK respondents, Asian respondents, across the world, everyone is going remote. And this is probably going to stay. We don't expect that once the vaccine goes and, we're finally in the age past COVID, that everyone will go back to work and workflows will return to exactly the same as normal. For some companies, yes. For a lot of companies, no. Right now, we've seen a 20+% increase in remote working. We expect that to at least remain, not go back below a 15% increase overall once this ends. So suddenly companies are operating differently. They're putting a lot more procedures online. They're doing a lot of things, and cyber crime knows this. They know that a lot of companies had to go through a very unexpected shift. They know that in many cases the infrastructure is not in place, and they are taking, it's like sharks and blood in the water. They know it. They know people are in trouble. They're coming in and they want to move before people are used to doing this, because once people get used to, online interactions and online business running, then they'll be a lot harder to scam. So right now is the most dangerous time. I know in the United States, the FBI reported the cybercrime is up by about 300%. I couldn't find any exact UK stats, but I'm going to guess that they are sadly pretty similar. Right now, it's like, yeah, it is the dawning of a new age, and unfortunately, it's not one that we chose to be in. It is a change that was going to happen, but is now happening very, very quickly because of COVID. And for companies that cannot afford to spend any more than they have to leave themselves open to a cyber attack or to cybercrime is just asking for massive financial trouble. So what can you do? What can you do short of spending billions of dollars investing in the latest cybersecurity software and just hoping that it's enough? As I said, it all starts with education. Train your employees. You know, the chain is only as strong as the weakest link. If all of your employees have at least an adequate understanding of, you know, what cybercrime looks like, even if it's just phishing. As I said, that's really basic, but it's still really common. And it's something that's easily preventable if you know how to look for it. But at the corporate level, build an actionable strategy. You should have a cybersecurity action plan. It needs to be specific. It can't be, you know, what we're going to do if cybercrime brings down all of UK. It's, you know, you got to keep it focused on your company. What are you going to do when you detect a data breach? Not if, when it happens, because it will probably happen. It's just the way of doing business now. You want to have your dedicated personnel if possible, you know, a specialized group of IT, chief security information officer if you can afford it. If not, find a partner. There's lots of security providers out there. You know, Microsoft, Amazon, all of these guys offer security services because they understand the dangers of the new workflow that we're a part of. And always remember that this is not a one-time thing. You can't just create a cyber action plan and then put it in a drawer for when you need it. This plan must be revisited probably every 6 months, every year at minimum. You should go back in, re-examine it, update, you know, check the newest studies, check the newest, you know, regulations from the GDPR, from the government resources suggesting what you do, what new types of attacks have been discovered, how dangerous they are, how frequent they are. It's an evolving landscape. I wish I could say that these criminals have reached, you know, their heights of sophistication and their heights of their damage that they can do, but they haven't. As long as the internet exists and keeps evolving and changing, so too will cybercrime. The good news is that companies, you know, like Microsoft, like Apple, like all of these security providers are hard at work also trying to keep their devices secure. So yeah, I will now take questions if there are any. And I know that's a lot. It's a very big field. But I hope that was just enough of a small crash course to get people at least aware that this is going on and that there should be something done to protect it.
Thank you very much for that, Colin. I know last time I heard you speak, it sort of petrified me, what could happen if somebody was hacked. Can you share just one simple, perhaps low-cost method that PSPs can use to guard against cyber attacks?
Yeah, so we all have these. Pretty much everybody has a smartphone, you know, which is essentially a pocket computer. We call it a phone. This is a computer. And what a lot of smaller companies do is they compel their employees to, you know, be flexible, be willing to work at any time, be, you know, just reachable 24/7. So that means that a lot of employees put company information, company data onto this little computer. And also most of those companies don't keep track of that at all. It's really kind of astounding how little of an inventory is kept on the devices that, like, well, that just holds, you know, a backdoor to the entire company network. So what happens? In a normal world, people go out, they party, they interact, they maybe lose their phone. That's not happening so much right now. Maybe there's a silver lining there. But at the end of the day, it's still another device that the company didn't plan for, that the company has no idea how to regulate. So I like to think of it like the Titanic. The Titanic wanted to get to New York as quickly as possible. Even when they were passing through dangerous waters, They ignored, you know, the warnings of icebergs. They ordered more speed. The feeling was, we're going to get there early. We're going to do it so fast. We're going to surprise everybody. It was dangerous. It was reckless. They hit an iceberg. The ship sank. A lot of people died. And not to be overly dramatic, but it is kind of a similar situation, whereas we're going to do this so fast. We're going to optimize our productivity to peak levels. Everyone's going to be engaged all the time. I can reach whoever I need with this. People can keep working with this. We're going to get it done so fast. You might add a percentage point or two in terms of overall productivity speed, but it is not worth the trade-off if somebody gets a hold of the information through this phone and then uses it to cause millions in damages. That more than offsets the, you know, 1%. Oh, we just did this project, you know, 3 hours faster than we would have if everyone had to go to their company controlled computers and work from there.
Can I just ask you as well, I know that the last time I heard you speak, you were talking about the danger of security issues with PSPs, you know, letting the baddies in, as it were, through decommissioned or through their hardware, or especially if they sell it on. Have you got a comment you could make on that?
Yeah, so data destruction, which in this case just refers to getting rid of old hardware, old hard drives. As I said, the phones, you know, I could be as secure as I want with this phone, but if I've downloaded company stuff onto it, you know, company data, just my corporate email, corporate accounts linked to corporate Dropbox, all of that stuff. And then, you know, 2 years from now, I decide I want a new phone, so I just go trade it in. Even if I wipe my hard drive, all of that data is still accessible. It's not gone. I can delete it all I want. The only real surefire way to be like completely secure in knowing that data is gone is to literally smash the SS, because these operate on solid state drive technology, which cannot be degaussed. I know that was an old way to get rid of traditional hard drives, which were essentially magnets. So if you brought in another magnetic field, you could alter the whole thing and, you know, nobody could read it anymore. It's a really secure way to get rid of traditional hard drive data. Now a lot of things use solid state drives, which are a lot smaller, have faster loading times. There's really good advantages to using solid state drives. But the problem is that degaussing doesn't work on them. There's no magnets. So the only way to be sure when you're getting rid of a phone, a company computer, an internet connected printer is to find whatever is storing the data. Usually it's a little, you know, SD card, SSD drive, and physically destroy it. I don't mean that, you know, every employee should be given a hammer and tasked with it. It should be an IT task. It should be given to professionals who know what they're doing and who can do it in a safe, environmentally friendly way. But yes, please don't just be like, well, we're done with this printer. Let's move it out. We'll bring in the new one. Don't do that without being absolutely sure that whoever gets a hold of that printer, and there is literal dumpster diving for cybercrime. People will go to landfills, even if it's like, well, we just threw it away. It's like, no, people go looking for that stuff because they know people don't think about it. They think it's just gone. It's out of sight, out of mind. So cyber criminals are counting on that when they're looking for easy ways into networks.
Thank you, Colin. I really appreciate that.